Hello, welcome to the Moccasin Marine YouTube channel, and this is part 2 of the replacement of timing chains on a 3.6 liter high feature V6. This is in the 2011 Chevrolet Traverse. These timing chains are a 3-part system, and they're known for stretching and going bad and setting codes. So this time I've already got the timing chain on the this is called the left bank. This bank here, I've already got the timing chain installed, the guides, the tensioner guide here, and the tensioner right here, and that's the guide. That was all pretty simple. You have to put it in stage 1 timing. I'm going to reference the Chloe's, or I guess it's Chloe's video on how to do this. This is their kit, and I'll put that in the description on how to do this work. All right, so as I was installing the tensioner on the left bank, I knew that the one that came out, I put it in order. These are the 3 tensioners. This was the right bank, the primary chain in the middle, and this was the left bank. And so you see this bar on here on the left bank, that's what I remembered, or I knew that that's what came out. And I'll put them in order on my little work table here as they came out. The one furthest away from the car was the last one to come out. So I knew that this bar was on the left bank tensioner, but when you look at the diagram, this is the diagram that came with the kit, and it's kind of covered in oil now, but you see that bar is right there on that one right there. There's the bar right there at my fingernail, and it points to number 5536, which is right there. 5536 is pointing to the one with the bar. So if you look over here in 5536, it says secondary chain tensioner right upper. That's incorrect. So 5535 and 5536 are swapped in this diagram. You have to swap the part numbers on these diagrams. The box is right, the part was in, but this diagram's wrong. So I'm going to call Coys and let them know that they got a problem with it. This is kit doc 0753, and I'm going to call them and let them know that their diagram is incorrect. And I'm positive about that, because like I say, I've had videos before I took this thing apart, and that bar right there was definitely on the left bank, and this says it should be on the right bank, because you see that right there again, 536 right bank. So these are very helpful when you're putting an engine together, to make sure you got things going right. So in case you're curious, in case you want to know, this shows you the timing chain stretch on the primary chain. The one in front is the new chain, the more silver color one. The one in the back is the old chain. It's coated in oil, and you can see that the new chain is shorter. So if you look at the top up here, I got them suspended directly on this screwdriver, and there's definitely stretch. So that's one of these things. So you got a combination of primary chain stretch and secondary chain stretch. No wonder this thing gets out of whack. Getting ready to put in the primary idler pulleys, or idler sprockets, and they come in different part numbers, a bit different boxes, S930 and S932. But what's weird is that if you look at, it says LB front, this is left bank front on that side, and this says RB front. So you need to be careful, not make sure you don't confuse this. But this is definitely the right bank, because this is the side that goes down facing the engine. That raised part right there fits in a little recess in the engine, and this is the side that's where the bolt goes in this side. So this is definitely the right bank front. So don't get confused by the fact that the other side says left bank front. Apparently these are the same gear. They just swap out this internal bearing shell and put this side of my thumb would be over here on the other sprocket. So that's why they have 2 different part numbers, but it's apparently the gear itself is the same on both sides. They just flip it around on the bearing. So I just want to point that out. Oh, before I put this primary chain on, in case you want to see what the secondary chain on the left bank looks like installed. So I've got that mark is opposite the L, that black link there. So I get a straight on shot of it. So that's opposite the L there. And this other link is, so I turn this camera where you can see it. I'm gonna turn it, maybe I flip it upside down. So you can see that that's opposite the L there. And then on the bottom, you have to use a mirror, and you look down through here. Let me see if we can get this right. Look right down there, if you see it, but there's a hole in that gear, and there's a golden colored link right there. So it's kind of hard to see it, maybe. Right in that hole, there's a gold colored link right there. So this is the secondary chain on the left bank. And the way I put this in was I obviously I had these new phasers on. I put the chain on first, then I put this on, and then I put this on last. The Chloe's instructions say actually put this on first, and that's probably a better idea because it's easier to get that in. Then put this on second, and then once you get all that done, you get your alignments, then you tighten up this chain, or you put this tensioner on here and pop the tensioner and hold everything in place. So the secondary side on the left bank's done. Okay, I'm now installing the primary chain. I've got it on and it's kind of being a bear. What I found to be helpful is to pull the main crankshaft gear, slide it back out of the way so it gives you more slack in your chain. And now I think I've got these marks lined. Let me show you what it looks like. This is the left bank, so there's a mark right there lined up with that gold link. That's lined up with that one. And over here on the back, on the right bank, I've got that mark aligned with the gold link. You see that one? So now I've got the two outer sprockets on the chain in the proper rotation. Now I've got to slide the crankshaft gear back in and get the chain aligned with that mark. So I hope it falls in the right spot. It has to, because the other are in the right. There's only one way it can go on now. All right, as you can see, I've almost got it to line up. That gold link is not quite on the tooth with the mark, so I've got to rotate to get that chain to drop down a little bit more and line up with that dot on that crank right there. That gold link has to be opposite that dot, or that little mark on the crank gear. I've got to rotate this chain just a tad bit to come down towards me. So I'm going to do that by rotating the left bank phaser to get this chain to drop down a little bit more. All right, so what I've done, I put my 16mm socket on this phaser, turned it clockwise that way just a little bit, and that made the chain, it turned this idler sprocket rather, which then let the chain drop down, and then it fell onto the crank gear. So that's how I got this done. So let me go down there and check it out, and then see where we are. So you see now that gold link is right opposite the dot on the crank. So now it's the primary chain is properly installed. So since the other idler sprocket is not connected to anything yet, it rotates freely. So see how this moves around? So you can pull it like that, and it gives you a lot of tension, or a lot of slack right here to put your primary chain guide in, and then you can put the tensioner on the primary chain tensioner on the bottom. All right, the primary chain is now installed, and I got the upper guide in. It was pretty easy. Everything is lined up. I then installed the tensioner, which is right here. Install this tensioner, tighten these two nuts or two bolts to 18 foot-pounds, and then there's a pin. Each of these tensioners come with a pin like this that holds the tensioner retracted. When you get everything installed, you yank the pin out, and the tensioner spring pushes that plunger out and tightens up the spring. So the primary chain is now installed, and it's now time to rotate the engine so that this mark on this crank pulley lines up with that dot right there. That's the stage 2 timing mark right there. Okay, I've now rotated the engine to stage 2. You can see the mark just maybe just a tad past it, but that's okay. Okay, I've now got the secondary chain on the right bank started. I've got this black mark on the R mark, and then on the intake cam, and then I'm not sure where it is on the back. I'm just have to follow it around and see if it's on there. If it's not, I'll adjust it. Let's see what we got here. So come along, I think that's the black mark. Let's see what we got. Okay, from the previous video you saw that the exhaust cam was in the right spot. So now I'm going to check the chain position on the idler sprocket down there below. I'm going to have to refer to the Chloe's video again. I don't remember what that's supposed to look like. I'll get back to you after I look at that video. Okay, per the Chloe's video, this gold link right here is supposed to line up with that hole right back there, and it looks to me like I need to move over one chain link. So you can't move the primary chain because you're supposed to leave the timing mark where it is, I guess. So what I'm going to do is rotate the upper chain, the secondary chain, by rotating the camshaft center bolt just a little bit to get this chain to move over 1 notch. So in other words, the chain will move. Where am I at here? Chain will move down this in that direction by 1 link, so that the gold link moves over in that direction. Okay, I moved the chain just a little bit, or moved the cam sprocket just a little bit, and the chain dropped down in place. I believe it's in the proper place now. Let me see if I can tighten it up. So it looks like it's opposite that hole right there, that gold link right here. I believe I can see a hole underneath there. I'm gonna get a flashlight and see for sure. All right, all the chains are now installed. The timing system is now complete. I'm gonna remove these rags and turn this engine over twice, or maybe 4 times, just to make sure everything turns smoothly and no kinks, no binds, and anything like that. No real problems. Just put the rear timing chain, secondary chain, what they call it, tensioner guide on, and then put the tensioner on behind it. That was a little bit hard to do because I couldn't really see what I'm doing, but I just kind of felt around, and I went ahead and put the bolts in the holes of the tensioner, and then used the bolts to find the holes and put it in. So that's now installed. And all right, I rotated this thing over by hand a few turns, and didn't like what I was seeing. These tensioners here were popping in and out, and when that goes all the way in, it's kind of scary, because it means that you might be taking the tension off the chain somewhere, but everything seemed to stay tight. I'm not sure what was going on there, but I just also didn't jump a link on the chain. I could hear both the tensioners on both sides popping in and out as I rotated it, so I hope I didn't screw something up. But it's going to do that when I crank it up without oil pressure. These tensioners are fed with oil pressure inside, and the oil pressure helps the spring push that chain out so they don't pop in and out. The spring's only for installation. Oil pressure is what really keeps the tension, and I just hope when it cranks up, those things are going to pop in all over the place until oil pressure builds up. So I'm going to have to keep my fingers crossed. I sure as heck don't want to do this job again. So it's now time to put the cover on, and let's move forward with this project. So one thing I like to do is come back and look at the leftover parts to make sure I didn't miss anything major. I know these 2 parts here are left over. That's left over and that's left over. I know I put those back in, no problem there. That's one of the secondary chains, no problem. These are the 3 leftover tensioners, no problem. These are idler sprockets, no problem. That's water pump, have yet to put that on. That's my crankshaft sprocket, no problem. These are 4 camshaft sensors, and so before I took them apart, or took them out, you might say, well, they're not in order. Well, they don't have to be, because if you look on Rock Auto into this particular model, all the cam sensor parts are identical. Part number is the same, so it doesn't matter which hole they go back in, they're all the same. As a matter of fact, you can tell, looking at them, the mounting methodology is the same, all 4 of them, so you don't have to worry about putting them back in the same hole. This big CV axle, that's a problem. I'm not sure what that came out of. Actually, I do. It came out of my truck, so that's a leftover part from last week. These 3 bolts here held the oil pump on. The oil pump came with new bolts, so that's not a problem. There's my old oil pump and a few other parts left over. So this is the cover. I'm about to clean it up and reinstall it. So it looks like everything's been covered. So let's clean this oil pump, clean this timing cover, and get this thing back together. All right, one of the tasks that's rarely videoed is when working on engines and cars is cleaning parts. So I've spent the last hour cleaning this timing cover. It's a very elaborate timing cover off this 3.6 liter V6 Chevrolet high feature engine. I cleaned out, this is a groove. These are grooves all around to here, and then they stop and they keep on going. And they were full of gray silicone. By the way, I'm gonna put this back on with this Permatex Ultra Gray. I believe that's what was on here to begin with. It was gray in some areas, and but inside it was kind of brown from being in the engine so long and absorbing oil. But anyway, I believe these grooves are so that when the silicone sets up, it has a little leg sticking into the groove, and that helps to keep the once it sort of hardens, it keeps the gasket from sliding out this way, because it's got a it's got a little key into this groove that prevents it from sliding out under pressure. I believe that's what that groove is for. So the bottom line is you need to clean the grooves out, and that was a very tedious process. I had to take a razor blade and scrape in, and like cut one down one side and then cut down the other, and then use the point of the razor blade to kind of, as a triangle, to kind of gouge it out. So I've cleaned all these grooves and cleaned the front and back of this timing cover. So this is the, by the way, this is the, I missed a little bit. I'm gonna have to come back and get this right here and then get all the silicone out of this groove here. So I need to come back and get that one. But this is the water pump seal here, which is, this is the most, to me, it's the most risky part of this project, because your water's inside here, and then in this passage here, and then here, obviously. And so if these seals leak out, you got water coming into your engine. So you don't want that. That would be bad news. So the seal feels okay. I don't see any spots where it's flattened down. Feeling around my finger, maybe right in that corner, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to hope that that reseals. I'm going to clean this. I'm going to scrape the rest of this black stuff off the sides here, but I'm not going to remove the seal, and hope this seals again. What I may do is put, well, obviously going to put silicone around this groove here. I'm going to put a little across here. Obviously silicone goes over here, but I'm going to put silicone all through here on the outside of this gasket, just as a, not in here, because if water goes from here to here, it won't hurt anything. It's only from around the outside of this gasket that it matters. So like I say, that's probably the most risky part of this job, is make sure this seal keeps water out of your engine. I hate it when they do that. I hate it when they have a passage that if water leaks, it doesn't go to air, it goes inside the oil pan, or it goes inside the engine where there's oil. That's what boat motors drive me up the wall for. So this thing's cleaned up. Let's see the other side of it. Again, I got a little more scraping on it, on the water pump seal there, but overall it's clean enough. All this isn't really dirt, it's just baked in kind of black oil or something. Not too worried about that. I'm not doing this for cosmetics. I'm just trying to get the dirt off of it. Just want to reinstall it. So it's about ready to put back on. I'm gonna get some acetone and wipe down the. I'm gonna make sure it's absolutely clean. So let me see what I'm gonna do. Putting this thing down again. So I'm gonna use acetone and wipe down every single surface to make sure it's absolutely clean. Oh, no greases or oils all the way around, up in here too, and on the block before I put the silicone. So this Permatex, the instructions say to you apply a continuous 1/16 to 1/4 inch bead of silicone to one surface surrounding all bolt holes. Assemble parts immediately while silicone is still wet. That's the hard part, because it's going to take quite a bit of time to smear silicone around all this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to smear it on the engine and not on the cover. And then when I put it together, the cover's hard. By the way, I'm going to do a dry run. I'm going to put this cover in there dry with no silicone seal on it or on the engine, just to see how easy it is to get in there. And make sure I have a plan of attack on how I'm going to put the cover back in, how to twist it and orient it and angle it and whatever it takes to get in there. And then once I figure that out, I'll pull it back out, put the silicone on the engine side, work the cover down in there, and then push the cover up against the engine. It's got two locating dowels. There goes one here, and well, I thought there was another one. Okay, maybe it's not. It's only one locating dowel, this one right here. So the other side, you don't have a locating, oh there it is, I'm sorry, I missed it. So it's right there. So there's a locating dowel there and one right there. So that'll help keep it on there and that'll keep it lined up while I bolt it in. So let's clean this thing up and clean it off with acetone and get it installed. Okay, one additional thing about these covers and cleaning covers is I have this tool. It's called a handy burring tool, and it works great for getting, you go inside the hole like this and you work around the circle, and the tool pivots in the handle and it cleans silicone out of the hole very well. It makes it a lot faster. So I've already done that to this cover. One thing other thing I want to mention is each of these holes on the cover has a little plastic insert. There's one there, there's one there, one there. So every one of the mounting holes had these plastic inserts. Well, some of the inserts, like there's not one there. Well, that insert stayed on the bolt. So some of the bolts have inserts, some of them don't. So I'm gonna make sure I put inserts on every hole that does not have one. Take it off the bolt and put it back in the hole where it belongs. So I'm assuming those are kind of important. I guess it helps to center up the cover. There was inserts on the oil pump. There's inserts on the some of the bolts on the timing components, but the new parts didn't have room for the inserts, so I had to take them off. But on this cover, since I'm reusing the cover, I'm putting the inserts back in. Okay, I'm doing an analysis of bolts, counting my bolts and make sure I've got enough. So this cover takes 20 bolts. They are you skip that one because that was part of the tensioner system. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Again, that one and that one are part of the tension system. They don't count. So I got 20 bolts holding this cover on, and I've got 20 bolts over here. This extra one, this long one here, went right there because the boss is further out than the rest of these, so that long one went there. So the cover, I've accounted for all the bolts on that. So while I was at it, I looked at my other bolts that left over. So these two here held the water neck on through that hole right there and right there. The water neck slides into that and is bolted on right there. Then these three here held on the front ignition coils there, there, and there, because I went and checked my rear ignition coils. The bolts are still attached. The front don't have bolts with them, so that's where they'll go. So everything's accounted for so far. There's a stud right down there. That black stud on the ground went in through the alternator up here in the front. Once the cover's on, it goes to that bolt hole there through the alternator, and holds the alternator against the head or against the cover. And then those two bolts down there held the power steering pump back on the side of the engine. Once the cover's on, I can mount the power steering pump. That was a real bear to get to. Then you got this big bolt here. This is one I missed when I took the cover off. It goes in a hole right down in there somewhere in the middle of this block. It goes in this hole right here. It goes right there. Why it's there, I don't know. It was there, and it was not really sure of the purpose of that bolt, but I might figure it out before this project's over, but I don't know why it was there. So that's it. That's accounted for all the bolts, and now I'm gonna put this cover on. Okay, I don't have any acetone handy. I was about to run to Lowe's and buy some, but I went in my shop and found this can of gum out. It's almost brand new. And reading the directions, it says contains acetone, toluene, and carbon dioxide, so this will work. So I'm about to clean these gasket surfaces with gum out. It's a gum out carb choke parts cleaner. And I'm gonna spray it on the rag and then wipe it on with a rag and clean it off. I'm gonna do that with the cover and the block, and the engine, and get this thing cleaned up. Okay, change of plans. It was such a hassle, or a B word, getting this cover back in there that I'm not gonna try to pull it back out and put silicone on anything and put it back in. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it sit just like it is. I think I can get my hand in there and wipe silicone on all these surfaces with it in there, and then just push it up against the engine. So I'm not even going to attempt to try to pull it back out. So wish me luck with that. All right, I don't know if you can see, but I've smeared silicone on every surface on this cover. I smeared on the cover side instead of the engine side because it's easier to get to. I got my hand down here and smeared gray silicone, ultra gray on this, all the flange, not up here because that's where the valve cover goes, but on this surface here. All right, about to push the cover up against it and put the bolts in and finger tighten them down. All right, I've now reached a major milestone. I've got the timing cover back on. It's all bolted together, and all the nuts, all the bolts are torqued. There's 20 of them, and then that one right there makes 21. It's a little bit longer than the rest of them. So 20 plus that one, 21 bolts. Oh, I forgot to tighten those two small ones right there. Almost forgot about that. Good thing I saw that. One right there and one right there. I was about to put this harmonic balancer on. I don't have the proper tools, so I gotta go get it. Fate strikes again, so I gotta put those in before I put this balancer on. I'm gonna do that now. So it's a major milestone. Got the cover back on, and next I'm gonna get these valve covers back. I've got to clean them first, but then I'm gonna put the valve covers back on to keep the, it's a little bit of a windy day, so I'm trying to keep the dirt from blowing inside this engine. Then you got this, let me show you a crappy design here. So you've got this idler pulley right here, and there's a bolt that goes, that's the head of the bolt that goes all the way through. That's what's holding the alternator to the engine. That's a pivot point for the alternator, not a pivot, but it's just one of the, it's the bottom mounting hole for the alternator. So the rest of the mounting holes are up here. So to get this alternator out, you'd have to pull this whole bolt out to let the alternator swing free. Well, the bolt can't go anywhere because it hits the frame. It hits the, this is unibody. It hits this unibody panel here. So you can't get that bolt out to replace your alternator within the car. At least I don't see how you do it. The only thing I can think of doing, and this is an idler pulley, so if you ever have to replace that, you can't get it out because the bolt is preventing it from, I can't get this thing out because the bolt would hit the frame. I already tried. So I'm not really sure how you get that out. One thing I can think of is maybe taking a sawzall and sawing the head of the bolt off and keep sawing until you get the so you get this idler pulley out, and then put the pulley back on, thread the bolt back in, and then put a nut on the what's left of the stud to hold the idler pulley on. That might work. That's the only thing I can think of doing. But that's a pretty dumb design by General Motors right there. It'd be a shame to have to take your engine out to replace an idler pulley. So anyway, just want to point that out. So I'm making progress, about to put the valve covers back on and try to wrap this thing up. All right, since the last video, as I was saying, I have the timing cover on. I'd forgotten about that huge bolt right, you can see it, it's right there. There's the head of that big bolt. I forgot about that one, so I put it in and I don't know, I torqued it down to whatever I felt was tight, probably about 30, 40 foot-pounds. I'm not sure what that's for. It's probably for, I know there's another bolt that goes right here, right there, and then another one right here. And those are part of the mounts that go to this strut, this shock absorber, or it's a brace for the engine, torsional brace. And it goes from here to a mount that bolts there. So that might be for when this thing's in a different type car to put a mount over there. Maybe it goes in a forward-facing car like a Camaro or something, I'm not sure. That's the only reason I can think that bolt's there, because it didn't have anything attached to it when I took it out. So the back valve cover is now installed. I've got all the ignition coils installed and plugged in. I love coil on plug ignitions. It's cool. No spark plug wires to do with. Just insert the coil, tighten it up, pop the harness on it, done. It doesn't offset the fact, it doesn't offset this dumb design up here for this idler pulley, but it's close. So I think it's a great design to have individual coils for each plug, and this fire by computer, and the computer can tell you which coil is bad and also where it's misfiring. I love this LVD electronics. All right, I now have both valve covers on, and this primarily keep any dirt from being blown into this engine. It's a windy day, and I want to get the covers back on, at least to keep dirt out of the top of this engine. Except for those holes, I've got rags stuffed in there, hopefully to keep that out. I'll have to vacuum that out when I take those out. I have not put the harmonic balancer back on. I've got to go buy a tool to push it on or pull it on. The bolt that was holding on is not long enough to pull it on and hold it on. So I'm going to buy that tool. Actually, I have the tool in my shop where I build marine engines, and I'm going to have to go get it. All right, I'm now installing the harmonic balancer, and I'm using this installation tool, harmonic balancer installer by OEM. It is part 57144. I use the same tool to install harmonic balancer on small Chevrolets. It will not work with LS motors, but it is working with this engine. So all I have to do now is take a crescent wrench and start tightening that nut, and it'll pull this harmonic balancer onto the engine, and you keep going until it bottoms out, until it won't turn anymore. All right, this 3.6 liter high feature V6 is now at a state of repair where I started part 1 of this video series. So I'm going to make this part 3, reassembling all the, putting the engine back together to get it running, and starting at this point. So I just put the harmonic balancer back on, and if you notice, part 1 starts with me having just taken the harmonic balancer off. So.